Al Capone and the Fangirls, written by Kaylee Shaw, Jesse Brackway, and Josie Ray.
Al Capone sweat as panic swept the entire room. People were running in every direction, trying to escape the claustrophobic walls of speakeasy as the police invaded the illegal operation. Scott and Petunia were amongst these eccentric individuals. They stood out in their 21st century garb. The police had invaded just minutes before, followed by the Justin Bieber fangirls. Scott and Petunia didn't know which to be more afraid of, the police carrying their numerous weapons or the rabid fangirls trying to avenge their idol's death. Deciding both were a major threat, Petunia and Scott jumped out the back door into the alleyway and made a break for it. And it all started approximately 2 days prior in the 21st century. Scott had been visiting his dear friend Petunia, but she mentioned some exciting news. Well, exciting to her at least. Petunia had come across a time machine and was excitedly telling Scott every detail on his workings. Scott failed to see her excitement.
You don't understand, Scott. Using this machine, we can go anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, I guess I just don't see why it's so important.
It's extremely important, as well as awesome. I mean, you can learn history by going to that time period.
Yeah, okay. Whatever you say, Petunia.
At this point, Petunia found herself feeling rather angry. Fed up with Scott's negative attitude, Petunia proceeded to kick Scott out of her home until he could accept how awesome her time machine was. Due to their stubborn natures, neither wanted to admit the other was right and that they were wrong.
The next day was a beautiful day, the perfect day, in fact, for Scott to take his silver PT Cruiser out for a drive. Cruising along downtown, Scott failed to notice a pedestrian crossing the street, accidentally hitting and killing the innocent civilian. As it turns out, the civilian was none other than Justin Bieber.
When the fangirls finally found out that their idol was dead, they became furious to scary proportions. They began to research everything they could to find out about Scott, including where he lives and works. Then they used this information to stalk him down, attempting to bring about the same fate to Scott as Scott did to Justin. At first, Scott did his best to ignore the fangirls on their death threats. However, it soon became too much. He could no longer even go to Starbucks without their death threats being written on his coffee cup. Scott soon became very depressed, seeking help at a psychiatric ward. Unfortunately, the fangirls found him there, showing up in Justin Bieber t-shirts, with pitchforks and torches in their hands. Fearing for his life, Scott fled to Petunia's house and demanded to use her time machine in order to escape the fearful situation. A smug Petunia asked only one thing in return, that he declared time travel to be the best thing in the world. He hesitantly obliged. After contemplating the pros and cons of the situation for a couple minutes, he then quickly jumped into her time machine, entering a random date and time. Unbeknownst to them, the fangirls had quickly followed, arriving at the same destination they had. 1924, Scott and Petunia appeared in a speakeasy in Chicago, Illinois, in the midst of the temperance movement. A little shaken from their journey, they proceeded to attempt to fit in as best they could, despite their clothes from the 21st century. Petunia, the history buff she was doing her best to gather as much information from the people in the illegal operation as she could. Scott sat in the corner, downing drinks left and right, saddened in his predicament. Suddenly, the rowdy atmosphere became tense as a group of policemen infiltrated the club, followed quickly by a group of fangirls. Scott quickly grabbed Petunia and was ducked out of the speakeasy. Not even in the past could Scott hide from crazy fangirls. Petunia ran around the city of Chicago in a panic. The fangirls followed, determined to murder Scott. The two friends turned around corners and followed tunnels until they had finally lost the crazy fangirls. The two panted in exhaustion. That was when they saw the crazy fangirls running toward them again.
Are you happy now?
Of course not! Now I have to put my good friend Al Capone to sort out these girls. He'll know what to do.
He took out his cell phone and looked for service. He swore when he realized he had no service. It was 1924. There were no cell phone towers since they didn't exist yet. He threw his phone down in anger.
Now I need to find a payphone. My cell doesn't work.
Doesn't Al have an iPhone 5?
Yes, but it stopped working in 1924.
Petunia rolled her eyes inside. She dug in her pocket, pulling out some loose change. She handed it to Scott, and then pointed at a payphone. Scott quickly figured out how to work the machine and called Al Capone. Capone answered on the first ring. Scott quickly explained their predicament, and Capone promised he'd be there as soon as he could. With the fangirls almost to them, Scott and Petunia stepped into a doorway, out of sight of the fangirls. The crazy girls ran past them, not even noticing that the two had somehow disappeared into thin air. The girls' footsteps faded a minute later, and soon Petunia and Scott could hear a car pulling up on the sidewalk. Scott peered around the corner of the doorframe. Al Capone was getting out of his car, and he had a huge AK-47.
Oh, hey, Al.
Scott?
Know him?
Of course I do. He time travels all the time.
And you,
I met him at Picket Day. He was buying a Twinkie.
and you didn't want to time travel with me?
I don't know. I guess I thought that time traveling with you wouldn't be as exciting as time traveling with Al Capone.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but where are these, fangirls?
They ran up by a few minutes ago, but they'll be back.
Sure enough, all the fangirls came back a few minutes later. Scott and Petunia ducked around the corner while Al Capone took aim. Within seconds, all the fangirls were lying on the ground, blood pooling everywhere. Due to the fangirls being from a different time period, the bodies quickly disappeared. That was when the 1920s police showed up.
I heard gunshots. What's going on here?
Sorry, I was just showing my friends here how to shoot an AK-47. You don't have a problem with that, do you? No, sir. No, I do not. Have a good day.
Thanks, Al.
No problem, Scott. See you on the other side.
Bye.
Watching TV and eating nachos. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Scott raced to the door and yanked it open. Who dared to interfere with his and Petunia's favorite TV show? Hey, you miss me much, old friend?
Hey, Al.
Hey!
Look, come here now. Petunia and I just watched our favorite TV show, eating nachos.
Ooh, I love nachos. Al Capone and the Fangirls was inspired by a conversation about time traveling to the 1920s and what it would be like and how people lived. The story then evolved into what you saw today. The point of view for this story is third-person omniscient. This is shown by the line, Scott and Petunia didn't know which to be more afraid of, the police carrying numerous weapons or the rabid fangirls. The point of view was chosen because it fits the story very well, since so much goes on. The conflict in this story is man versus man. Throughout the story, Petunia and Scott are running away from the angry fans of Justin Bieber after Scott accidentally ran him over. Another conflict is between Al Capone and the fangirls, because he shoots the fangirls to protect Petunia and Scott. The setting of this story changes a few times. First, the story begins at a speakeasy in Chicago, Illinois in 1924. The story then switches to the modern day at Petunia's home. The location is not specified. The story then goes back to the streets of Chicago in the 1920s once again. After that, the story ends at Scott's house in 2013. Chicago was chosen because we wanted Al Capone in our story, and Chicago is where he lived. The theme of the story is don't anger fangirls. This is a very important lesson, since in this day and age, many fans of theater/fans get very angry when someone speaks out against their idol.
My name is Noah McGuire, and I played Scott in this story. Three adjectives that describe Scott are careless, nonchalant, and stubborn. Firstly, I am careless. A quote that shows this trait is, cruising along downtown, Scott failed to notice the pedestrian crossing the street, accidentally hitting and killing the innocent civilian. Because of my fight with Petunia, I become distracted and careless, thus allowing me to accidentally kill Justin Bieber. I am also nonchalant. This is illustrated by the quote, yeah, whatever, Scott replied dully. I guess I just don't understand why you find this to be so important. Throughout the story, I am unimpressed by time travel, much to Petunia's displeasure. Finally, I am stubborn. This trait is shown by the following quote. Due to their stubborn nature, neither wanted to admit the other was right, and they were wrong. I only admit that Petunia is right to save my own life. Before this, I was willing to admit that time travel is interesting. I am not well-rounded, making me a flat character. I am defined as a static character because I do not undergo character development.
Hi, I'm Jessie Brockway, and I play Petunia. I'm the best friend of Scott, and when I find a time machine, I become very excited. 3 adjectives that describe me are intelligent, excitable, and stubborn. I portray my intelligence and thirst for knowledge when at the speakeasy. I do my best to gather as much information from the people in the illegal operation as I can. I show my excitedness when I find the time machine and excitedly tell Scott every detail on its workings. I also shriek that the time machine is extremely important as well as awesome. I am also stubborn, seen when I kick Scott out of my home and completely ignore him for the rest of the day. Scott wasn't impressed by the time machine, which made me angry, which led me to kick him out. I am a static character, since you don't know much about me. I'm a little more round than the other characters, however.
Hi, I'm Alex Watton, and I played Al Capone in Al Capone and the Fangirls. My purpose in this story was to protect Scott and Petunia by shooting all the fangirls who were chasing them. I am intimidating, reliable, and violent. This is all shown after I shoot them, or all of the fangirls were lying on the ground, blood pooling everywhere. I'm a flat and static character because I'm mysterious and unchanging. The audience doesn't really know much about me.
My name is Ryan Walter. I played Justin Bieber's #1 fangirl. 3 adjectives that describe me are crazy, obsessed, and violent. Firstly, I'm crazy. This is shown by the quote, they began to research everything about Scott, including where he lived and worked. The 2 protagonists are pursued by the fangirls who are attempting to kill them. Next, I am obsessed. I'm such into anger over Bieber's death that I traveled through time to find the man who killed my idol. A quote that shows this. He could no longer even go to Starbucks without death threats being written on his coffee cup. I am violent. I attempt to murder Scott, eventually forcing him into a mental hospital. This trait is demonstrated by the quote, unfortunately, the fangirls found him there, showing up in Justin Bieber t-shirts with pitchforks and torches in hand. I'm a flat character because I'm not well characterized. I'm static, with my only change being death.